right, everybody, welcome to this evening's planetary session. Take it away, Roxy.
Hello, thank you, Vince, and thank you all. Hope you've been having an amazing day so far. If you've already been with us for a few hours, or if it's just getting to be your morning, good morning. However your day has gone, welcome to Regenative Rising. We're nearing the end of our fourth day. Is that real? It's the fourth day. Thank you for joining us in this inaugural celebration of the Regenaissance. We've been feeling it. Confluence means rivers coming together. So we're in this global confluence of all of these different people from different walks of life coming together, creators in their own rights for regenerative futures. And so here in this decade-long global movement, we're bringing together revolutionary creators, system thinkers, organizations, and together we're imagining, collaborating, and co-creating a world that works for 100% of life. One of the most exciting things that we've been witnessing over the course of the last few days is how many new connections, collaborations have been emerging. Some things that we could have never predicted, and it's really a dream come true. So thank you for joining us, for mobilizing in this time, in this historical moment for planetary regeneration, and coming together for this birth of Regenera, our story universe that was created by the Design Science Studio, that was made to really scaffold thousands of projects over the course of the next decade, and ideas and creators to really move towards a future that's equitable, just, and regenerative. So we're launching 144 projects, each one helping co-create and propel the transition to this future. And we're going to get to hear from a few of those projects today. So we're really honored to get to share that with you. And also in joining us today will be two different keynotes, Samantha Sapaya alongside Allison Wybrow and Dr. Josie McLean. And we will also get to have a little bit of time with some of our founding team to talk about the theme for today, which is resilience and coming together. So with that, welcome. I'm going to introduce our first speakers very soon. But before that, we're going to give ourselves a moment, as we do in the Design Science Studio. I'm going to remove my spotlight, and we're going to look at ourselves in gallery view. Invite you all to give yourself just a few minutes to move around, to wiggle your body and breathe, because Lord knows we all are sitting and staring a little too much probably. So give yourself a moment to move as we prepare for a wonderful session. Inviting you to take some deep breaths into your body, your vessel. Filling up and then release. All that energy, all that excitement. I remember the last time I had a dance party with little babies. That was awesome. Aww. All right. Beautiful. Thank you for partaking in our ritual as we do with the Design Science Studio. Gotta make sure to give ourselves a little time to wiggle and breathe. So in that spirit, please give yourself a moment to just take 3 simple cleansing breaths. And on this final breath, connecting to the energy of all of the beings that have come before and will come after and who are with us today and now working for this future, filling up, 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 up. And then release, grounding into the earth. Thank you for being with us. I'm going to introduce our first share of the evening, which is a wonderful duo, Allison Wybrow and Josie McLean. Always curious, a playful and provocative coach and psychologist, Allison brings systemic depth, somatics, and story. She invites clients to step up and live their legacy in the different communities they're a part of. And Josie brings a background that includes a career as a financial analyst, a corporate strategic planner, coach, and climate change researcher, as well as a systemic change practitioner. She's been involved in sustainability activism since 2006 and co-founded the Be the Change Australia and now Climate Coaching Alliance. Welcome and thank you. This is a pre-recorded video they recorded just for this moment. I hope you enjoy.
Josie, and welcome. We are so delighted to be here because we've been invited by Sam Sapaya to take part or to say something about the Climate Coaching Alliance as part of this regenerative confluence that's coming together across the globe this week. So what really inspires us is that this is really using art to transform and empower and help us really imagine a regenerative future that works for all life. So we're just really delighted to be part of this, and as well as our contribution here, dipping into some of the sessions through the week. So yeah, so I think one of the first questions we wanted to answer or wanted to bring as the Climate Coaching Alliance is just to say a little bit about what was the impetus behind getting the Climate Coaching Alliance up and running. Josie.
Oh, thank you, Alison. Well, really the Climate Coaching Alliance, I suppose, is a product of its time. So Eve brought Alison and I together with her, and we thought about what is coaching's part to do within this climate and ecological crisis, and thinking about the way that coaches sit with some really important decision makers from an authoritative point of view, but also we sit with people in all walks of life doing all sorts of things in their communities. And how is climate coaching and how is climate and the ecological crisis being addressed within those conversations? So our aim was to try to influence coaching and coaches to think about how they could bring these really important social and ecological issues into the conversations that we're having with people all of the time. So we're one giant learning lab, really, aren't we, Alison?
We are.
Not that we're pretending we've got the answers, although many of us feel we've got the answer because we've been thinking about it a long time, but really it's for us all to find our own answers.
And what I really love, actually, I mean, the whole purpose of the Climate Coaching Alliance is to learn. So you're right, we are one giant, now global learning lab with over 1,000 members and, you know, all 6 continents engaged in this inquiry. And the beauty of it is that because everyone's got a little piece of the jigsaw, we can learn and cross-reference and leapfrog from each other. So we're really learning how we can step up and shift ourselves, shift our own perspective, hold the space for our clients, and really respond in a way that means we can start to shift the human story just bit by bit and slowly, wave by wave. So I think that's really the impetus and the reason for our existence. Go on.
I was going to jump in there. So also thinking about how we can apply what we know about systemic change within our own industry and have it ripple out from there. And so, you know, really impressed that global coaching bodies have signed a joint statement saying that they'll collaborate around this question. And I think that's the first time our industry has come together like that. And I'm just imagining, as we are in this space of great imaginings, that what it would be like if every other industry did that too. What if, you know, all of the major pieces in different industries around the world came together and said, we're going to collaborate on this. We're going to find a way to make a big difference in the coming 10 years. So I'm really inspired by that. I think it's something fabulous that coaching has done and is doing.
Yes, yeah. And I think in addition to that, one of the other things that we're doing is also helping us think about how we ourselves, because all coaches around the world are either micro or middle or even macro businesses.
Yeah.
And so we ourselves have a role to play in our own, in writing our own regenerative future, in ensuring we are part of the solution. And so not just working with others or with our profession, but actually how are we ourselves fully taking responsibility as human beings and citizens for what is ours to do. So the Climate Coaching Alliance has a really beautiful, big agenda, but it's also everyone's agenda. And I think that's one of the things that's so brilliant, is that we don't call ourselves an organisation, we call ourselves a community. And I just wondered if you wanted to speak to that a little bit, Josie.
Well, I guess that reflects the principles upon which we organise ourselves. So we are trying to consciously employ the principles of living systems in the way we organise ourselves. So rather than an authoritative hierarchy with people telling other people what to do and controlling other people, we're really trying to attract people into our orbit, I suppose, and asking them what's yours to do, and going with their energy. So this is just a space for people to come together, and it is regulated in a sense. It has a vision and some values and some core principles by which we operate, but they're not the usual principles of trying to control people. They are the unusual principles of trying to engage and liberate people to do what's theirs to do. So, and it's proving quite fruitful at the moment. So we're very pleased with our experiment in the way that we're actually operating as well. So I'm wondering if you want to reflect for a moment, Alison, on sort of the path we've been on for the last 12 months and what we've achieved.
Yeah. How long have we got? I think it's just amazing, actually, when we think about the learning lens that's on this, because it's at every level, isn't it? Not even, you, Eve, and I sort of started having this conversation, and lots of other people have now joined in. But it does feel like we're having a conversation, we're having many conversations, and through that conversation, people shift, and people, you can see people catalyzing and transforming as they go through conversations with each other that are just open and curious in this space. And I guess what I've really learned is what it really means to learn and to apply living systems principles. So if we think that nature and Mother Earth is always there and available to teach us some of these key lessons about actually what leads to flourishing. And it is diversity, it is letting go, it is connecting people together to have conversations, and it's being hugely generous and bringing a loving gaze into all of that, and just reducing the fear. So I guess I've really grown over this last year, and I've learned together with everybody as we've been in different conversations. And I think one of the things that we've come to now is just really working with energy and noticing what's the balance that needs to be struck between the level of structure and the right kind of space. And so that we've really learned to navigate principles of living systems and to apply those. And so now we're really working with this idea of what's the scaffolding required to really enable this energy to continue to flow and emerge and grow. What about you, Josie?
Learning, this is just coming to me now. So I think, we often talk about how when you're a part of a system, you're never not having an influence. You're always influencing because you're part of the system, whether you do something or you don't do something. And I guess what I have really taken away over the last 12 months is that despite being down here in a really weird time zone in Australia, compared to the US and the UK, that I can have an influence and that it can be a useful influence for other people as well. So that's been really encouraging, I suppose. And it should be encouraging for all of us because we are all a part of the system. And we can have those little butterfly effects where we flap our wings on one side of the world and then something happens on the other side of the world. And it's been marvellous and perhaps coincidental that the CCA arose during the time of the pandemic when everyone was online anyway. So we've got this glorious organisation that is connected entirely online, really. There are communities around the world, but I'm not sure that they're meeting in physical spaces. Do you know?
No, they're all meeting online. So we've got several communities that have popped up in different locations. We've got several communities that are connected by language, and we've got several communities that are connected by interest. And so that's the beauty of it. If anyone has a question or an inquiry or an interest or lives in a
language
or language, they can just start talking to each other, and they are as an equal part of this community as every other part of the community. So it really feels like a forest of coaches in the way it's connected, but in the way also each part can just fully flourish in the way that it makes sense to the people in that part. So
yeah, and those listening to us might think that we're being a little esoteric or grandiose, perhaps. But actually, one of the gorgeous things about the CCA when people join any of our events is that people talk about the wonderful feeling, the energy, the way it is to be a part of the CCA. And I think that's actually a reflection that we've got the principles of the living system right, because living systems, when they're healthy, are actually beautiful. And I love that art is actually trying to portray what a regenerative future would be, because I think art will speak the language of that because of its capacity to actually convey what beauty is. It's so much better than words ever could. And it's something that resonates inside us. When we see beauty, we're attracted towards it. And it's because a healthy system is a beautiful system, I think, in all sorts of ways. So, yeah, maybe we should move on a little bit, though. I might have...
We should. I mean, I love that. I hadn't thought about that before at all, but that's a really inspiring thought. And I guess the other side is that our work is incredibly practical. So we're taking things that are work in practice across the globe, and we apply them in other parts really easily and really quickly. So there's a huge amount of practical tools, technologies, shifts that coaches are making for themselves, for their business, and with their clients. So it's starting to ripple out there. And I guess I'd just like to say something about how you join in and how it works.
Can I pause you for a moment, Alison, before we move on from the ripples? I was just thinking of one example. So during the third global 24-hour conversation that we have offered the world, that occurred on the 3rd of March this year, there was a particular presentation by a school teacher down in New Zealand. And he shared the very practical ways in which he is talking about sustainability and climate change, and engaging his students in that conversation, and engaging them in their community in that conversation. And it was shared with another school, I believe, near you in the UK recently, and with tremendous outcomes there too. Do you just want to talk a little bit about the other part of that?
Yeah, so one of my daughter's schools, I talk to them frequently about environmental issues and sustainability, as you might imagine, and they're really up for it. And so they've just employed this new teacher she's done so much work around plastics and sustainability around the globe. And so a few of them joined into Brendan's session. And they're taking that methodology, those questions, to a day tomorrow, actually, when they're applying it with their people who are 11, 12, 13, and some of their older 16, 17-year-olds, to really help them think about what they might do in their own communities. So, I mean, that took 2 weeks for something to go from someone talking about it in New Zealand to be applied in the UK. And that kind of multiplier effect is just exactly what the CCA is here for, is to take things, apply them, and do them at speed, because the crisis that we're in, and it is a crisis that we're already seeing environmental and social breakdown, we're already seeing climate breakdown, and we need to shift very quickly, and we can only learn at speed. The faster we can learn, the better. And so one of the reasons for the Climate Coaching Alliance is to just take the blocks away from learning, and to enable everyone to access everything that they need to do the work where they are, and to do the work in the conversations and relationships they've got.
Yeah, and to be encouraged by each other. So how can people join us, Alison?
Well, it's super easy. They simply go onto the website, which is climatecoachingalliance.org, and sign up. It's free. There's no requirement for you to do anything. There's no requirement for you to pay anything. We have monthly meetings, and if you're new, we do a little intro to the CCA, so you get into the groove, and then we have a big global meeting where we just kind of decide what we're going to do next. And that's really how it works.
And if you'd like to benefit from some of the conversations that were had and the learning that was shared on the 3rd of March, you can just go to our website. There's a program page for the last conversation, and you can click on almost any of those now and click through to the recording. So you can watch all of that for free too. Do you have to be a coach to join us, Alison?
No.
And in fact, we are attracting a number of sustainability professionals now too, who are interested in change, because that's one of the things that coaching knows how to do. How do we reach into the hearts and minds of people and help them change their habitual patterns? So this is I think this is the piece that coaching has to bring to the world at this point in time.
I think it does.
Thanks for this conversation, Alison. Thank you, everyone at this conference, and we wish you a wonderful time. We wish we could have been with you in person, but here we are, recorded anyway, and sending all of our love and gratitude to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Epic. Ah, that was brilliant. What a perfect segue for right before we transition over to Stephen Bao. I love getting to hear from different climate industry professionals all over the world and their perspectives on why art and design is so critical in this transition. And the next person that I have the pleasure of introducing, I kept telling him today that I feel like our theme for today is made just for Stephen. Stephen Bao. Every time I hear the word resilience and coming together, I think of Stephen. And I think that it is just it has been such a beautiful experience to have Stephen as such a core part of the Design Science Studio. He was one of the captains of the different groups that came together. So the way that the studio works is that we have 144 creators, and one day a week we're all together learning, sense making, and another day of the week we would break into our pods. And so one of the pods was led by Stephen and had some other incredible humans in it. Casey House and Carson and a few others who would pop in and out. And Stephen was really like holding it down and has shown up in so many ways. And as a designer, designing for resilience, he explores how might we imagine, design, and build the future together. He founded the Builders Collective to build leaders to design a resilient society. And he writes about the evolution of design at stephenbao.com and works as a mentor for the UX Academy Design Lab. Some of our last sessions that we did for the salons leading up to this amazing launch, Stephen took it on and he helped design and lead this entire space of the Agora. I'm sure he might get a chance to share a little bit about that experience, which I know in some ways was stretching, but he did such an incredible job weaving and courageously like bringing together some amazing voices and empowering them and asking deep existential questions as you do. So it's so wonderful to be in this time and space and this celebration with you, Stephen. And thank you for sharing tonight.
Thank you, Roxy, for that introduction. Yeah, it's been such a pleasure to be part of the Design Science Studio, the Living Systems Collaboratory, and to just to have the support of your leadership, but also your mentorship and guiding us into so many amazing experiences. So I'm just going to share my screen here, and I'll get into the work that I've been doing. And yeah, so maybe what people don't know is that I'm also chair of web communications for the Graphic Designers of Canada. I've been a member of the GDC since 1994, and interesting thing happened last week. We had our AGM, and at the annual general meeting for the BC chapter, our former president of the chapter, Jonathan Strebley, is now president of the International Council of Design. And I was amazed by how there's a shift happening within that culture of design as well. So I just wanted to quote something that he's been talking about. This was his keynote. Design has a critical role to create a world that is environmentally sustainable, economically viable, socially equitable, and culturally diverse. Each and every design decision, no matter how seemingly mundane, must be considered in terms of these 4 pillars. Clearly, that requires an evolution in design practice and a public recognition of what designers can do. Current approaches to design practice have remained anchored in outmoded Victorian economic and cultural concepts. Designers are complicit in the negative impacts of consumption and urbanization. However, designers also certainly have the capacity and therefore the obligation to ensure a better future. But to be part of the solution, designers must recognize that they are part of the problem. So with that very provocative introduction, I want to get into how designers can be part of the solution. And part of what we were doing at the last Design Science Salon was creating a place of gathering. And it was, in a way, responding to this sense of agoraphobia that we all have because, well, there's a global pandemic. And so we feel trapped in our homes, anxious about going outside. And what this leads to is this recognition that we're in a very similar place that we used to be very long ago. I mean, not very long ago in some ways. So only 100 years ago, the Bauhaus was initiated by Walter Gropius in Weimar, Germany in 1919. So it's come to a point where we're recognizing maybe we need a new Bauhaus because it was formed at a time where it was all about responding to many systemic crises that were happening at the same time. And I'm just taking a quick view through some of the photos that I took while I took a journey to the different areas where the Bauhaus existed in Germany. And out of the inspiration of the Bauhaus, obviously my last name is Bau, it means to build in German. And I kind of felt like as a designer, I do want to build something. I want to build a different kind of world, but what kind of world would that be? And so over the last 5-6 years, I've been working on building a brand. I started a corporation. I called it the Builders Collective. I just took out the vowels and I realized, oh, these letters actually can be used as a kind of acronym, building leaders to design a resilient society. And so out of that inspiration, I started to think about, well, what does a design process mean for social change, for social architecture, to imagine, design, and build sustainable, livable environments and communities? And so just keying in on imagination, collaboration, resilience was the primary influence for thinking through what are the visions and values of that kind of organization. What kind of processes would we use? What kind of work would we build? And so it was thinking through grid systems and color palettes and how I would build layouts using a very simple design system, very much based on Bauhaus principles of starting with elementary forms and then turning that into design processes. And maybe how do we engage with communities through events, workshops, and projects, and think about what does it mean to imagine, creativity and innovation at the intersection of art and science, design influenced by the past and shaping the future. And what are we building? Building resilience, relationships, and community. So that's what it meant for me to build leaders to design a resilient society. And so I started building out a website and graphic design, in thinking even maybe there should be a magazine all about resilience. How do we design for resilience? And what would be embodied in the the material that we would cover in that magazine, it would be a very general interest magazine because it resilience and living systems, it covers everything. So that would be the challenge of, how do we do this in a very simple way, but also in a way that takes us from maybe Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where we start with food, clothing, and shelter. But instead of a pyramid, I was thinking, well, maybe a matrix of human experience where we're weaving in the physical and the metaphysical, the tangible and the intangible, and then bringing in ideas maybe from philosophy about being and knowing and doing. How do we know truth, make beauty, and do good, for example? So I then turned this into, the tangible visuals and the intangible visuals pointing to metaphysical human experience. So one of the things that we did in the previous Salon was to create a world utopia that would evoke this gathering space of what was the Bauhaus trying to do? Well, it was a space where they were bringing artists and painters and sculptors and architects together into one space where they could then dream about what the future could look like. And so they created this manifesto. Let us create a new guild of craftsmen without the class distinctions that raise an arrogant barrier between craftsmen and artists. Let us aspire to conceive and create the new structure of the future, one which will embrace architecture and sculpture and painting as a single entity, and which will one day rise toward heaven from the hands of a million workers, like the crystal symbol of a new faith to come. So even the image that they've used here is this modernist cathedral. What is the church of the modern world? What is that building that's going to gather us around? And the vision was actually built out through, embodying that through architecture, where it changed the way people thought about the facade. In fact, the facade was not the primary goal of this building. It was actually to embody the different things that were happening in the different parts of the building, where there would be a workshop, living spaces, eating spaces, administrative areas, and places to come together to witness art being performed. And so as we were exploring different ways of engaging with each other within the Design Science Studio, we were also invited into another opportunity, the Living Systems Art and Design Collaboratory, in partnership with UC Irvine. And so as part of what I was suggesting to the Living Systems Collaboratory, I was thinking of myself as a social architect. Now, I don't have any kind of architecture background. I'm not a social scientist or anything like that. But what I'm recognizing is, as a designer, we are being invited into projects where we are working on building digital infrastructure. And so by creating websites and digital media and applications, what we're discovering is that these systems have a way of actually building out, the social systems of the future. And I'm not sure that we've actually figured out, how are we thinking about how we're imagining our role in that work as designers. So with a little bit of psychological priming, I'm using the word 3 to lead into how we understand reality as human beings. So we think of reality in terms of stories, and I'm thinking back to a story that I was raised on in the Christian scriptures. But as a designer, I had a different way of thinking about that where, well, I'm not seeing the fight between spirituality and science that this story of Genesis has provoked in this generation. What I'm seeing is that there are design iterations happening here, and there's a pattern of light, water, and land as we look at, how the 6 days of creation play out. The first 3 days, we arrive at vegetative life. The second set of days arrives at sentient life. And as we project this pattern into the rest of the story, we see a nation building exercise and then a world building exercise that has played out into the last couple centuries. But what has this led to? It has led to all these systemic crises. And this was happening at the turn of the century, around the time that the Bauhaus was being formed. They were experiencing the same sort of systemic crises that we are experiencing: biological, personal, social, economic, political, and ecological. And so the Bauhaus was formed to address those issues. But here again, now we find ourselves in those same places where we are facing a worldwide pandemic that is also part of all these other crises that are happening. So what if we thought about the metaphysical, how this story of light and water and land was about enlightenment and understanding, the emergence and transformation of the new, and the healing and regeneration of the ecosystems. So here we are thinking about the evolution of design from physical artifacts to living systems. And my proposal to the Living Systems Collaboratory was to think about metaphysical gravity, a navigation system for spaceship Earth. So we find ourselves in all of these nested systems, and recognizing that we're in the first couple years of the design science decade. And how do we move in this new understanding that we're gaining from cognitive science and biology, how all of these things reflect how we are part of a holobiont. And anyway, so that really does take us to the end of my time here. But if you want to explore this, this is a link to a mural board that you can use to just introduce yourself to this idea that I have been toying with, mental models for human experience, where we think of ourselves as nested systems, which are then also part of other nested systems like networks and economic systems and social systems, where we can think of ourselves as part of indigenous ways of knowing. So instead of these systems that we have of global corporate authoritarianism, we can think in terms of education sovereignty, where we are one with nature in the way that the indigenous peoples thought of us. So if you want to find out more about what I'm thinking, then please do look for me on my websites, and please support, if you can, through Patreon or subscribing to my newsletter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. That was incredible. All your work is, and really worth going and checking that mirror board. It's really, really fascinating. I think you said at some point, you said metaphysical gravity, and I was listening to a song that's called Love is Metaphysical Gravity. So I'm gonna play it here for the next minute and a half while I introduce our next speaker. Let me see. There you go. Should be listening to it in the background. So love is metaphysical gravity, and since we're talking about music, it is my great pleasure to introduce our next guest speaker, John Ash. And I'm gonna bring here on stage with me. Okay, I'll lower the volume a little bit.
I think you skipped a person, Nico.
I skipped a person. Oh no. I was convinced we were gonna listen to some music. Darn it! Oh well. You're gonna need to wait. We have our Topia tour now. It's not a person; it's a Topia tour.
Well, it's for Topia and our talk about resilience. So maybe let's talk about resilience, and then we'll go into
Let's
Topia
talk about
tour.
resilience. Perfect. Do you want to pull up the slides?
Yeah.
Do you have them in my hand?
Let me find Amanda. Where's Amanda?
I'm here.
Okay, let's bring Amanda up. Vince, can you bring us all up here?
Oh, I think she has to turn her video on, or we can't add her in. But I'll pull up some slides.
Yeah, it seems that Amanda is not able to turn her video on right now. So as soon as she does, then I will get her on screen.
That's all good. Amanda, ¿qué pasa?
I'm here. I'm not able to turn on my video, but I'm happy to talk.
Okay, well that works. Great. Well, I love the segue though, Nico. That was beautiful.
Metaphysical Gravity is the name of me and my husband's band.
Wait, please tell us more about this, Amanda, while I pull these slides up.
And it's awesome.
My husband and I, we've played a couple friends' weddings, mostly around a campfire, and our band name is Metaphysical Gravity because that's what Buckminster Fuller talked about as love, as the kind of governing law for metaphysical interactions. Is love. It's what pulls us together. Have like two orbits surrounding one another.
And when did you say is the next live session that you guys are doing? No? Okay, I tried.
Oh, our next live session? Coming to you for the after party on Saturday. No.
You'll need to get married in order to. Amanda is such a fun, playful singer. She also has, she haven't spoken about it, but she also has an a cappella band that makes the most amazing planetary driven, awesome songs. But you guys are performing, right?
Yes.
When is that happening?
Well, we've recorded it. We're just remixing it now because latency doesn't allow for multiple people to sing over Zoom. So
okay.
I think we'll play on Saturday.
Saturday, what time? On the plenary?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a 3-minute video, so we can play it whenever.
Perfect. So come back on Saturday.
Which means we'll play it multiple times. Well, we're going to spend just a little bit of time now talking, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, about the studio, what we're doing here, and then touching in on the theme for today a little bit more specifically from our voice, at least, weaving together some of the voices we've already heard about resilience and coming together. So welcome again. Thank you all for mobilizing for this historical moment for planetary regeneration. We're all coming together as a part of this global movement and in support of this future that is equitable and just, that we are moving towards. We have been so humbled by the process of scaffolding and supporting many artists over the course of the last 8 months within the course of the Design Science Studio, this educational incubator for art and design and of the Regenaissance that was built really within the frame of regenerative design to empower the system and build the capacity of the creative community to be an ally for and with and to be the catalyst that they are for moving inspiration and conversation into collective action to support this transition. And so all of the creators and all of the partners and everyone who's on board is really working for a world that works for 100% of life and working through. There's a lot of muck that we get to move through. But as Buckminster Fuller said, we made all the right tools for all the wrong reasons. And despite the fact that this is kind of our last exam and we need to pull things together because this is the decade. And if we don't turn things around now, we might not get a chance. So in this time, in this decade, there is this vision that we can make the world work for 100% of life in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone. And so in order to build and transform this capacity globally, we are envisioning it, we are embodying it, and we are amplifying and supporting and learning with creators from all over the world. We've just spent 8 months working with them, and it has been such an honor to be weaving and learning together. We have kind of 3 components in the studio: the curriculum, where we've been learning about things such as synergetics and futurism, and we've had incredible sessions on traditional ecological knowledge and planetary challenges and opportunities and solutions. System change, social change. We've been really looking into how world building can help facilitate taking some of Fuller's principles and moving them into the world and beyond. And so this is one part, and then this global community that we're working and building with, connected to partners in the movement. One of the voices I'm really excited to have sharing with us today is Samantha Sapaya, who's been a big part of the team and who was the one who really wove in the Allison and Josie, who we heard from earlier today, and has been really weaving this interdisciplinary bridge. And that's just kind of one microcosm of the macrocosm. We've had partners today. We had Unified Planet tune in, as well as Leaders on Purpose. And we have people all over the world in the Buckminster Fuller community, the Planet Home community, and beyond. You know, these are just a few little highlights that we've been connecting with today, but there's so many different organizations, initiatives. Dakota, who was with us earlier today, who blew us all out of the water, is also kind of working globally and is a youth activist and a leader for organization. And so it's been a really powerful day, just feeling into this, you know, these words that we're connected to a global community that is really a part of this movement. Moving towards collective action as we are showcasing, weaving, scaffolding, funding, and launching art that's changing history. And we're doing that together. So we're really grateful for your participation and collaboration. And now we're gonna really lean in a little bit more deeply to the Design Science Decade and hear from Amanda Joy about the resilience and coming together. So thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Roxy. So we are in the second Design Science Decade. Buckminster Fuller started the first 1965, like many things, 50 years ahead of his time. And here we are in the 2020s, leading up to the world achieving the Sustainable Development Goals in 2030. And BFI and now the Design Science Studio and this collective movement is encouraging the world to use the principles of design science as we meet those goals. So using design and futurism and designing with intention, and then looking to science and ecological principles, learning from nature, so that as we solve these problems, we aren't creating more problems in our wake. So there's 5 different themes that we've identified for the decade. in somewhat order of appearance within the decade. So we've been going through those themes this week. On Monday, we had reconciliation and commitment. Yesterday, we had restoration and capital transfer. And today, we're speaking about resilience and coming together. And then the next 2 days, we'll have regeneration and celebration. And then this idea of reenchantment, which I just love, which is becoming reenchanted with the earth and our place within nature as nature. And this idea also of the circularity that will come in this decade, in which all materials will either be reused and recovered from past products or grown in a regenerative way and returned to the compost pile. So today we're talking about resilience and coming together, and it's a little bit of a darker theme than some of the other ones. I think it is acknowledging that the times ahead won't all be easy. The previous nonprofit that I co-founded, Project Drawdown, did an analysis on how fast we can achieve global cooling. And our latest analysis says that temperatures will peak in 2053 at 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And so with that, we have several decades more of extreme weather, which causes a lot of shocks to the system. And that those shocks, we can either, respond to them as like stash your cash and bunker mentality, or we can come together and say, okay, as we're having these shocks, how can we, create long-term resilience in our short-term reactions to this emergency response? And we've seen that happen in the last year in the pandemic with mutual aid networks popping up in communities, so instead of just saying, okay, let's, just deal with the problem today, let's actually set up infrastructure, for one another so that we can come together as we have continued shocks to the system in this decade. So that's some more about resilience and coming together. It's been incredible to see that theme come to life today, and looking forward to co-creating more and more art together and culture together in this coming decade around this theme. Thanks.
What have been some of your highlights today around this theme, Amanda?
I really loved the Climate Coaching Alliance, and just thinking about kind of like what are all of the ways that we can repurpose all of the skills on the planet. So, coaches being used to focus on climate, what are all the different skills, whether you're a landscaper and you can do carbon positive landscaping, or you're a lawyer and you can represent youth and their future. There's a role for everyone. So like really loving that idea that that we always talk about, like we're more capable than we think. Buckminster Fuller said, we'll build all the right tools for all the wrong reasons first. And so it's just a matter of kind of upcycling our current knowledge and know-how to make the world work for all.
Beautiful. What about you, Nico? What have been some of your favorite moments today around this theme?
We have been in an incredible series of talks from the Living System Collaboratory. It has been very enlightening around water, which I feel is definitely a theme that we can all use for this, is as a river, as a place to come back to. And then I have had an incredible experience in a sound bath that happened. That is definitely something, music as a healing mechanism for coming together and being more resilient to things.
Beautiful.
I'll post a link to that one on the chat because it's worth listening.
Oh, will you also post the link to Dakota's video that we watched earlier?
Yeah.
Incredible. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No. If you weren't there this morning, that was also Samantha. Woo! Powerhouse. Wow. Everyone was just like leaking. So powerful. All right. Let's architect the future together. We are so honored to be working towards this future that is decolonized and equitable, resilient and biomimetic, collaborative, and diverse. And it takes time and it takes energy, and it takes looking at it straight in the eyes and being dedicated and working through it. And so we're honored to be on this mission, and we're not alone. We have so many different creators all over the world, and collaborators and partners who have also joined. So linking train cars, as Amanda Sage would say. Also, it's the Vision Train anniversary today. They've had a Zoom room open for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a year, drawing out the vision for a regenerative future. And they're one of the other spaces that we have that you'll see all over the schedule. So there's a really beautiful dance party that's going to be happening for the next few hours. That's happening each night, and really definitely invite you to go and enjoy. With that, I will stop my share and pass the mic back over to Nico, and just want to deeply honor and share some extra love and gratitude to Amanda Joy, who this week has been a little hard on the system for all of us, working really hard to support everyone. And just thank you for your unwavering dedication to this mission forever and ever, and for coming to share. And it's such an honor to be on this team with you. Love you so much.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thanks everyone for showing up.
I just gotta say, guys, I'm gonna share with you, it's so fucking dope to be working with the people that you admire the most on the planet. Like, it's true luck. I work with some really awesome people. Thank you to you too. So inspiring. And then before we move on, we're gonna do a little walkthrough, something really exciting that we launched and sent. Huh? Yes, please. A few months ago, when we were starting to create and design the studio, one of the things that came up for us was, this idea that we're starting to think about the premiere, and when we're launching all the projects. And one of the things that we realized is that we were gonna steward and help and scaffold hundreds of projects every year through the studio. And we thought that we needed to somehow bring them together thematically, so they weren't just 144 projects every year randomly put together, but they somehow had a way to interact with each other and create an ecosystem and a mimetic structure that was able to be replicated. So every time you heard about one of these projects, you somehow connected them together in a way, and each one of them could be, could serve as a portal to the others. And so we're starting to think about this idea of creating an overarching narrative that they could all fit in. And after many world building sessions and a lot of brainstorming, this idea came through of creating a fictional story universe and that we could put out there, but that was feasible enough that you could somehow embody as something that is real and be in this liminal space between fiction and reality, so we could inspire more people. And so what came through was Regenaissance, which is this city, is this floating city that appeared from the skies in 2021. Actually, this festival, Regeneration Rising, is the celebration of the arrival of the city to Earth, and it's a city that is gonna stay with us for the entire decade. And that will serve as a canvas. It will serve as a structure that will allow all the projects that will go through the Design Science Studio, but also every other project that is or feels part of the Regenaissance and part of this movement that is emerging, to have a space, to have a place to live. And as any other city, cities have many different spaces, and they can host from the Futurist Cafe, where we have philosophical discussions, to the Museum of Regenerative Art, to the Cooperative Manual Spaceship Earth Library with thousands of resources for regeneration, to incredible arts and projects and conversations. And so what we ended up doing is creating this virtual world that we decided that will for now live in two different platforms. One of them is Topia, which is the one that you're seeing right now. Topia is a spatial web platform that is all made with hand-drawn illustrations, and that allows you to just walk through these spaces. As you see, there is also a little little video, so you can run into people and talk to them and explore the space. And honestly, like I've done a lot of experiences here in Topia, and it's the closest I've experienced online to a physical gathering. There's this idea that being walking around with other people and like hiding between buildings and exploring the art, it really gives you this feeling of presence and being in a physical space. And so we have built not one, but like 5 worlds for Regeneration within Topia. These that Roxy is showing you is the launch pad. And so from the launch pad, you can access the other 4 worlds. Each one of them is themed. You can visit Natura, which is all about wellness and connection to nature. You can visit Agora, that Stephen was speaking about, with all the different projects that live in there. See, she ran into somebody saying hi. You can also visit the village, which is about village building and rethinking how we live and how societies are created. And you also have the art district, which is the most fun. Roxy, if you want to teleport yourself to any other, so they see also that you can jump from one world to the other. And then in a few days, we'll also premiere the Museum of Regenerative Art, MORA, which is our version, what will happen if the MoMA was created in the 21st century. And so we created a virtual museum with dope art that is willing to redefine what art is in this century. And we built that one in a new platform called New York City, which is another spatial web. It's more based on 3D than in drawing, so it's a different experience. It's more like virtual reality. But yeah, you can explore the narrative of the city and the story and the many questions that you probably will have in regenera.city. And then you can access all these portals and virtual worlds in regenera.art. For the second one, you'll need probably a code that you would have received if you register for the event. And yeah, so feel free to just go and explore. We have created also the website is pretty fun. It's very narrative driven and really fun to explore. And we have created all this. It's a lot. You might get lost on the way, but that's part of it. And it's just like in real life. You'll go out and explore and maybe check all the art that is there. Everything is clickable and leads to different rabbit holes, or maybe you want and you'll just run into somebody and have a lot of fun for a little bit. In any case, it's really fun. There is a lot of things in there. There is art, sounds, immersive experiences. There is some live performances from time to time. And this city will remain open for the entire decade, and it will host many projects, not only projects from our Evolutionaries. So if you feel like the project you're working on could fit into the city, write to us, because we're having these badges that will allow you to connect the project to the city. If the project fits, it might even end up in these virtual worlds, or you might create an additional, let's say you create a Topia world that is a new neighborhood in the city. And if it's, if it fits in the theme and the city, we can link to it from from the main portals, so people can access. Some of our Revolutionaries have created their own projects that are completely immersive and fascinating. Actually, you're close to the tree there. Umar has done an incredible job at creating an immersive experience around his project, Tree Tech. And so, yeah, so just participate, come and join and see the ideas that we're creating an ecosystem and a mimetic structure. So we all feel like, this feeling of belonging to a movement, which is the Regenaissance and the Science Decade, and a space where we can gather and come and hang out and witness all of these magic. So yeah, I'll post the websites there in the chat, and that's it. That's what I have for you. Enjoy, give us feedback, send us kudos, and thank you to all the people who participated in creating these magical worlds. There have been a massive amount of people collaborating and creating those assets. And
Yay. It's so epic and beautiful. We've gone over a little on time, so forgive us if we're running about 10 minutes late. But it was worth it. We needed to show you, starting to have sneak peeks into the world. All right, Nico, now you get to introduce Speaker John Ash.
Oh, Speaker John Ash, can you come here on stage with me? No, you're shy. So, Speaker John Ash, I've had the luck of sharing physical space with him for 2 weeks now. And I told him this morning that it was very beautiful to have to witness him just loving everything around him. I've seen him taking care of his plants, of his pets, his animals, the people that were in the house. And it's been a true magical experience to see all that love pour out, which is as big as his talent as a musician. He has an incredibly complex and interesting mind, and he expresses some of it through his songs that you're about to hear. And I don't know if you wanna talk a little bit about also the work that you do, or you prefer to just go to sounds.
Me?
Oh yeah.
I think I'm gonna just roll the punches and start going. Oh no, that didn't work. Well, the fan is going hot right now. Okay, so to preface, yesterday I got the COVID shot, and I'm like definitely feeling the vaccine, and I'm definitely feeling like cloudy, like time feels a little weird right now. But I found historically some of the best performances go by in a haze, which is probably great because I definitely feel like I'm in a haze right now.
What a dope jacket, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Okay, let's see. Can you all hear that well? Sounds good?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
View, okay. There's so many things to remember. Okay. I think it's more important for y'all to hear the words that I'm saying than see my face. I don't take my face really as anything. I mean, I am called Speaker John Ash because I think I have something important to say, and I sort of place a reverence upon the value of the word. I gotta say, I'm like pretty.
Is there a way you can make that bigger? It's hard to read.
I cannot.
Maybe zoom in with your
computer.
computer.
Here's what I can. I can, in that I can do.
You do share a portion of the screen.
I can do this.
Slightly better. Can you make
That's
it bigger?
perfect.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to scroll midway. It'll work. Yeah, I'm just gonna go. Now I'm gonna take off my headphones so I can just focus on voice. So, if you want to get my attention, use, a face and stuff. Okay, here we go. I can see all your faces now. As I was walking a ribbon of highway, I saw above me an endless skyway. I saw below me an endless valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to New York Island, from the redwood forest to Gulf Stream waters. The land was made for you and me. I've roamed and I've rambled, I followed my footsteps, the sparkling sands of diamond deserts. All around me, a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. seems to me the only thing holding man to his land is how much he's going Ariel violence. And here's his little man. What's a man to do when he doesn't have enough? What's a man to do when his neighbor has too much? You say that this is our land. I don't see it in the facts. It's something that is borrowed. The land will take it back. 'Cause we know the earth is dying as we barrel on ahead. They say that this is our land. And all the land is dead. This land's not my land. This land's not ours. Is for the people who live within. How could a being on where there be beings need a place to be? Hello. Is the sound good? Right. It sounds good? Okay. Hard to hit. That was very... I wrote that for this. This week. I wrote it for this week. Okay, I'm gonna do another song. All right. The fuck should I do? What 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 the fuck should I do? Ah, everyone's eating the meaning of God, chasing the freedom to be what you want. Turn to the music and now you abuse it, 'cause everyone's trying to be on the top. And seeking the meaning of God, 'cause praise the people on top. You're weaker the more that you talk, so I know what you say. You think something'll change. I love everyone thinking they're gonna break down. It's Carlos K. Praise the people up high, pay their way out of crime, but you're stuck at the bottom. You better get ready to pay with your time. What the fuck should I do? 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 Fuck should I do? What the fuck should I do? And everyone's trying to be a big man, cheating and stealing his party plan. As everyone does it, you can't rise above it. You're playing the game, so none of you even exist. Back off fist, taking a personal risk, selling your soul for a chip, taking a piss, looking into the abyss, copying to the top, breaking the law. But if you ever get stopped, lawyers won't do what you want, 'cause you ain't got money and power. Go. You're seeking the meaning of God, 'cause praise the people on top. You weaker the more that you talk, so I know what you say. You think someone will change. I love everyone thinking they're gonna break out of this social decay. Praise the people of power, pay their way out of crime, but you're stuck at the bottom. You better get ready to pay with your time. What the fuck should I do? What the fuck should I do? What the fuck should I do? Fuck should I do? What the 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 fuck should I? Okay, this is part of the trilogy I'm calling. Oh wait, did I freeze?
Nope,
No.
we can still hear you.
Okay. This is part of a trilogy called America. It's first two, part of America, and this I added this one just today, and I don't know if I'm gonna remember, but I'm gonna try, and I think it's good, and I might abandon it. Anyways. Oh, look at this stuff. Isn't it neat? Wouldn't you think our collection's complete? Wouldn't you think we're the world who has everything? Look at this trove, treasures untold. How many wonders can one planet hold? Looking around here, you think, sure they've got everything. We've got gadgets and gizmos plenty. We've got who's its and what's its galore. You want thingamabobs? We got 20 billion. But who cares? No big deal. We want more. Yes. Hello. I don't know when I started, so I don't know when I'm supposed to end. If somebody could tell me on there.
I have like 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yeah.
Wow, that doesn't sound like it adds up, but okay.
Or 4, actually, 4. Technically, we might have started a little late though. So.
Okay. All right. I wanted to try something special that I don't know if it's gonna work, but I wanted to try some crowd participation stuff. And I wanted, when I hit this part, we've got just 25 years to save the whole planet. Everybody unmute. And alright, you're falling down. Everybody unmute and sing along. And the way that this goes, and you'll know it's coming because the first part don't, like, it'll just be me, and you'll go on the second part, but it goes, my God, it's stuck in my head now, stuck in my head now, stuck in my head. My God, it's stuck in my head, it bears repeating. We got just 25 years, 25 years, 25 years. We got just 25 years to save the whole planet. So, it's same melody for both parts. When I hit that part in it, you know, just come in and unmute, and you know, and then at the end of it, remute, and we'll see how it works. We'll see how it sounds. Okay. Do you have anything to say? More than we gotta change. What are we gonna change it to, girl? Or is it just the same four lines? The world is in decline, and if the rich would just decide to give it all up, baby, you got a lot to say, but you will not ever say it if they do not give you the power. Yeah, my God, it's stuck in my head now, it's stuck in my head now, it's stuck in my head. My God, it's stuck in my head, it bears repeating. Come on, we got just 25 years, just 25 years, just 25 years. We got just 25 years to save the whole planet. I'm gonna be the greatest man alive, yeah. Be the greatest man alive. You could, but you can't make decisions. Do you have anything to say to the planet in decay? I know you don't. You say you do. So go and change everyone's mind. Posting memes online, you'll save the world, you'll save the world, you'll save the world. Yeah, right. I'm gonna be the greatest alive, but you can't make decisions. You got a lot to say, but you will not ever say it if they do not give you the power. Yeah, you wanna shout the same four lines like socialism's great, or yeah, capitalism's the best, okay. Yeah, my God, it's stuck in my head now, it's stuck in my head now, it's stuck in my head. My God, it's stuck in my head, but it bears repeating. We got just 25 years, 25 years, 25 years, we got just 25 years to save the whole planet. Gonna be the greatest generation, I know it. You can make the people wanna die for it. You'll be the one to open up their eyes, but they won't even listen. Do I have 1.5 minutes left?
Sure.
Okay.
It'll be quick.
I just brought it down. I want to bring it up at the end with something hopeful. I don't want to end on cynicism. I don't need your pride, and I don't need your fear, 'cause we'll fight it all out. Living through this fear of myself and others, we will bind together, we will find another somewhere throughout time. So don't discount my growth, I could spin on my own, and I'll fight off your fight with a breath of ozone. From the heart of my core flows our magnetic poles. They will cast off your words and will make us a home. So you raised us so well, we walk on our own. We can do all the things that we need to make home now. With all of our people and all of our pride, we'll find one another, we'll seek out the light. So don't discount our growth, we can walk on our own, and the world's not alone when the earth is your home. So Hello. Hi.
We'll take the
Was
end.
that what? I
Thank
have no
you so
idea
much,
how
John.
was it.
Epic.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, most definitely.
Always. Thank you.
I don't know too many people. I haven't known too many people very closely who take their distaste with our modern systems and turn them into music so vividly. And it's been really fascinating to be so close to your musical process as you're looking constantly at how we can reinvent our socioeconomic systems to benefit social good instead of profit, and expressing that through music as one of the mediums to kind of duke it out and think about a new way to translate that transition that we hope to move through. So thank you. COVID shot and all. That was epic. All right. Next up, we have Samantha Sapaya. I'm so excited. I will introduce Sam. Do we have, there you are. Yes. Sorry, I get excited. I love this human. All right. A Southeast Asian trickster in training, systems navigator, and creative disruptor, weaving South-South regenerative dialogue, leadership, and design. She weaves South-South regenerative, oh, I read that twice. As interdisciplinarian, Sam weaves art and science with her global network from her current base in the Philippines. And it has been such an honor to have Sam be such a big part of the Design Science Studio team. And definitely, I appreciate that you call yourself a creative disruptor. When I first met Sam, we were connected through the DRC, and we had, I think, like a 3-hour-long conversation about art and regeneration. And that hasn't stopped. Sam has been a critical component to so many of our keynotes, so many of our formative language around how we're communicating, has shown somewhat like very, very sobering light on the things that need to be shown sobering light on to make sure that we're having a holistic approach to this process of this transition. And I have grown so much through our friendship, Sam, and I'm so honored to have you share as our keynote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roxy. I think ultimately this is also about how we build connection around the world, and it's not just around, it's not about me, right? So none of anything I do is about me. And this is partly what I will talk about. But to go into it, I'm coming to you from Metro Manila in the Philippines. It's morning here. The city of Manila was officially founded by a Spanish person. So it was officially founded, it's still recognized today, that's the way it's recognized, as a Spanish city on 24th of June, 1571 by Conquistador Miguel Lopez de Legazpi. This is regarded as the official founding date, even by the government today, even though a Tagalog fortified polity called Manila had already existed here, dating as far back as 1258. Colonial powers present in the history of the city of Manila include China, Spain, Japan, and the United States of America. Chico Mendes, a Brazilian rubber tapper, trade union leader, and environmentalist, once famously said, "Environmentalism without class struggle is just gardening." So with that, let me introduce myself. I am a product of the British Empire in Southeast Asia. I was born into a westernized, colonized nation that celebrates to this day the arrival of the British. That would be the oppressive city-state of Singapore, one of the world's most unequal places. I was born to a Chinese mother and an Indian father, housed and fed in a loveless, rootless, privileged, capitalist Asian society. I then studied, worked, lived in Northern Europe, returning to Southeast Asia in early 2020 after 12 years away. So I've been back for about a year now. And what I'm doing here is I'm seeking my calling, whatever that is, on the deeply colonized, economically troubled, infinitely biodiverse, tropical subcontinent of Southeast Asia. I'm currently in the Philippines, and I consider myself an orphan and a nomad. So I'd like to share my screen to show you a few images as well. If I can get there. There we are. So this is where I'm from. I'm from a city-state that often, people reference using images like this. And I'm aware there's a stupid watermark there. But many future cities concepts make reference to Gardens by the Bay in Singapore. And you know it because it has these domes with the super trees. For example, Kent has it in his Zoom background right now. My mom jogs here sometimes. You probably don't know this, and I don't blame you for knowing, but we Singaporeans keep a lot of secrets. Gardens by the Bay is the height, the absolute height of capitalist privilege empowered by corrupted government favor in Singapore. Singapore is one of the loudest, boldest, least apologetic examples I know, alongside Sweden, of rampant corporate greenwashing. This is what I see when I look at this picture. And that's something you can't scrub off. That's part of me. I'm born into that system, and I have privilege because of that system. And this is what Singapore sells to the world as a form of, I guess, tourism, as a form of futurism, as some way to position themselves as a smart, developed nation, etc. This is one way that propaganda exists in Singapore. Now, I am a design strategist for sustainability and regeneration. What that means doesn't really mean anything. I am a sustainable design engineer. Over the last 10 years, I've worked with urban design, architecture, and building engineering teams to make incremental change in Scotland, England, and Sweden. Of course, I faced a lot of Western propaganda and ignorance. I've always been discriminated my whole life in one way or another because I'm a mixed child and also because I'm not in the place that I should be, or whatever that means. But this has been my reality my whole life, especially so for the last 12 years of my adult life. I'm not biologically old, but I feel absolutely ancient. And this speaks to how weary I am. I'm no longer angry. I no longer hope. I don't expect change. And in that place, I'm absolutely happy. I have contentment in knowing that this is all crash and burn. And in that space, I feel like I understand what I must do. So here, there's a lot that I can talk about. I recognize and I'm very conscious that this is a largely American-dominated space with very different ideas of what regeneration is. And I understand that comes from folk having grown up in and participated a lot in American culture. So I was thinking I can talk a lot about our cosmic, biological, and cultural evolution. I was thinking I can talk about late-stage capitalism and anti-work. I can talk about the Capitalocene, white supremacy, ecofascism in the sustainable development and regeneration worlds. I can talk about the collapse of globalized Western civilization. I can talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I can talk about power dynamics and what real allyship looks like. I can talk about how loud the USA is, so ridiculously loud when we need to be listening to our own voices here in the Philippines, here in Zimbabwe, here in Peru. I can talk about real deep inner work and what it takes to kill your ego. What I know is that we can't think our way to regeneration. We have to experiment, i.e. we have to embody ourselves with different ways of being. And that doesn't involve being loud. I was going to bring up some statistics about the USA and compare them to other countries in the rest of the world. I was going to do this whole thing where I made graphs and stuff like that. But that doesn't matter, and it really doesn't mean anything. This is stuff that you can research on your own. That means more. If you care enough about your place in the world to do research, then you would either already know it or you would be able to go and research that stuff on your own. What is the place that we have individually and collectively in our world. As a designer, it's my responsibility and I am accountable for designing for human well-being. That's ridiculous. I don't even know my own well-being. How am I supposed to design for others? In urban and building design, some of us have figured it out. We just don't know how to get clients to pay for it. That's our excuse right now. Always shifting responsibility, this is nothing new. Some sustainability professionals understand that network is everything. What I've often found is that building friendships or allyships with other organizations, so other sustainability professionals in other organizations, can be the difference between client approval for a less harmful project or a blatantly harmful project. There is no such thing as a not harmful project. We don't know enough about the human world we live in. We prioritize our own lived experience when it means nothing, unless it is able to see itself fitting in amongst the lived experience of the collective. This particular Western civilization of separation that we currently exist within removes us from our ability to see the collective. Self-education is resistance against the propaganda that we're all receiving ever since we're kids, receiving all of these messages from society, from culture. But there is no excuse now that we have the internet. It's not a place for you to be loud. It's also a place for you to learn. So I was considering sharing all of these, different research and artistic resources showing why a degrowth understanding of regeneration is highly needed. But really, I think what I would just recommend is Crash Course World History. If anyone has come across that, I think it's a very highly slick production for a very tiny budget that can help, I guess, place some understanding of where I am and who I am, or what right do I have to do anything. But what I want to show you actually is art that inspires me. And for me, this is the highest form of art. And people often think I'm joking when I say that, because it's memes. I think memes are what we need in our giant propaganda machine for regeneration. So with the remaining time that I have, I'd like to just show you a selection of memes that some of them are memes and some of them are just posts. And they're a mix of things around stuff in the US and stuff in other places. So this first one here is about Hong Kong. I don't know how many people have been following what's been happening in Hong Kong, but many people around the world have obviously recognized that other nations need to stand up and say something about the rule of law being broken, freedom of speech being broken, and all of these aspects actually leading into a lot of what we take for granted in, I guess, the global north around freedom. I particularly love this one because it speaks to exactly degrowth, going back to perhaps the 1920s. All we know is bake bread, avoid plague, and revolt. This is about white supremacy, and there's a lot of resources, a lot of people that you can follow online to hear more about this stuff. I don't really want to go into it, but I think that this is a process that needs to happen, particularly in the global north, but also we have white supremacy mindset in the global south as well. Why do we sit and listen when there are other white people in the room and don't feel that it's our place to voice our own opinions? This is all trained, and this is all how colonization exists in our behavior. Late stage capitalism is a great place to find really hilarious and accurate versions of memes. And I love a quote from Tupac, "Eat the rich." I think literally, and he meant that literally, like we need to barbecue the rich. And if you have anything whatsoever to do with Star Trek, you'll know, of course, that it's largely a critique on the Great Acceleration, which started in the 1950s. No White Saviors is another great Instagram account to be able to talk about the African perspective, the global South perspective as well. It's very similar because we are equally oppressed by global trade policy and international development, sustainable development tropes, etc. It's all there. When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. So this speaks to the collapse, again, of civilization and our separation from ourselves. I love this one because this is not just greenwashing, it's also highly, highly lucrative greenwashing. Instead of saying all life on Earth is going extinct due to certain feedback loops which have already started, and I believe they started thousands of years ago. There's nothing, like, we don't have 25 years to save the planet. It's destroyed it hundreds of years ago, and stuff is already happening now. But rather we believe, or we sort of hang on to this religion that we need to keep global temperature rise under 1.5, which, by the way, we've already exceeded. We don't understand colonization either. And it's hilarious to think that global former colonial powers are not present colonial powers. And it's also hilarious to think that we are all one human race suddenly, that we all have to work together without addressing any of this stuff, or without reparations. Global efforts to adapt to the impacts of climate change are lagging as much as efforts to slow emissions. I think if you look more and more into this, you'll find that there is a privilege problem. And again, to summarize by stuff like this, where you're so privileged that you don't understand until you are actually personally suffering it. Whereas we here in the Philippines are drowning today from sea level rise, today, right now. The great tragedy of the climate crisis is that 7.5 billion people must pay the price. Again, going back to this idea that colonization is over and that we are all the same. And this is what I think, sadly, for people who are being born today. I think it's very upsetting that new human beings are being born, one, to perpetuate the system, and two, to suffer the consequences. I think the scariest thing about anything is that some people don't even know they're doing it because they were literally raised that way or around it, and that is their norm. And there's this whole movement online, obviously, of stopping here, this generation. This is where the trauma ends. Obviously, AOC, there is no healing without accountability. There is no unity with white supremacists. Exactly what I said about global north, global south. We don't have unity with people who continue to oppress us. Denial of racism is racist. Denial of the caste system is casteist. Denial of gender is based on oppression itself. And denial of privilege is ignorance. Carbon removal, something that we talk about all the time, this very technocratic focus, for example, of climate action, I think is complete and utter folly. We need to not try to base our cultural evolution of technology, especially electronic technology, as any sort of silver bullet, because they are designed with different cultural settings, and cultural settings that, again, lead to destruction. This one, I would like to apply this to a lot of, I guess, power dynamics and privileged societies, where I am usually expected to behave in a certain way because of who I look like, or how old I am, or the fact that I have a vagina, for example. And I think that's funny. It's just funny. Accountability feels like an attack when you're not ready to acknowledge how your behavior harms others. And for this, I would like to definitely say that I have been interrogated by Singapore authorities for saying any of the things that I say. They would like to know who my parents are and where I learned these Western ideas of climate change, of sustainability, of etc. And they regularly put people in jail for writing things online, for example. And that's the minimum that happens in Southeast Asia. Just yesterday, 6 people were killed here in Negros Occidental in the Philippines, simply because they are farming activists who are trying to fight for food sovereignty here in the Philippines. I'd like to speak to Scotland as well about being basically the first English colony. The Highland clearances is one way where you can actually start to look at where the beginning of colonization is and how these rationalizations were built into our cultural evolution. And all of these, obviously, cultural evolutionary narratives perpetuate to this day. This is one view of the again, how loud the US is everywhere, even though it's burning outside in India, literally, because of the farmers' protests where 250 million people are protesting. We're watching the United States on CNN. Like, that's what's happening. Same thing happening here in the Philippines. We've had the largest, strongest typhoons hit the Philippines last year. And what we were talking about during that time was Black Lives Matter in the US. Sea peoples, another perspective of how history is written and what we actually learn. The fact that we need to sit with it, you know, so again, the thing about being loud versus sitting with it and letting it embody you, I think is part of the work. Again, how to be an ally, I think a lot of people still need to continue to work on that, myself included. Being somebody from the global north, Singapore, who lived in the UK and Sweden, and now in the Philippines, I'm working on this myself too. And to recognize that governments in capitalist society are but committees of the rich. They are not governments. They obviously don't have your interests in mind. They simply are there to manage the affairs of the capitalist class. This whole thing is a system of corruption. And I could easily replace a lot of these things with global north and global south as well. So these relationships can be dangerous, can be very harmful, and it's not safe for people to simply be thrown into spaces where they are not, you know, for the sake of diversity or for the sake of tokenization. Again, to remember our past and to remember our real histories, not the ones that we want ourselves to tell ourselves, to make ourselves feel good about whatever. Our real history. We have to embrace both the light and the dark of our humanity. The doctrine of discovery is something that, you know, it's one of the many ways, but this is the first way for essentially the stealing of land, for example, and something that I think anyone on the planet who is a human should know about. There's a lot of studies now being done about the effect of colonization on erosion particularly, but generally environmental degradation. We obviously live under a dictatorship of capital. Money rules the world. And finally, when I talk about evolution, this is what I'm talking about. How good a place are we right now? So that's me. Yeah, I am holding a couple other sessions here within Regenerative Rising. The next one being a conversation that I'm having with a friend in Toronto called People Like Us. And another one being a workshop that I'm holding with a friend in London called The Pilgrimage Within. Both of them are old white men. And so that should be interesting. But cheers. Thank you very much, Roxy, for this time. And yeah, I appreciate everyone listening to different voices as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. That was epic. Thank you for those memes too. I loved that. That was like a epic collection. We should have just a whole gallery of all of those memes. They deserve to be in a gallery, just like surrounding you. Like, yeah. I think that earlier today, one of my mentors gave a talk. It was called How I Quit Racism. She said she might update it to like something about the caste system. She was sending me a voice memo earlier. And it's a really just a complementary flow of conversation, you know. Another thing that came up today, I just like kept being reminded, like the only way out is through. And, you know, we're like talking about the potential visions of the future that we want to move towards from a place of absolute privilege, that we get to be safe enough, well enough, healthy enough, creative enough, resourced enough that we can even think about this stuff and like talk about it and work on it. And so that also means like more and more kind of sobering, you know, moments of reality and like memetizing the transition, you know, and I think that's a lot of what the city, what the vision is trying to help do. And it's not all just like happy-go-lucky. It's a balance. There's tensegrity in the process. And I love, like, no matter how much how hard it is, the work that you like, I don't mean like hard for you to do, but like it's tough material. You always do it with such like, that's what we're doing. There's just like there's like a cynicism and a joy somehow, and you're like, well, this is the shit we're gonna move through. We're gonna make it happen. Yeah. So super appreciate your dedication and you bringing that
for that. And I think we have to continually talk about it, right? These are things that we have to feel comfortable speaking about, and memes are a great way to do that. So definitely encourage people to step into that space, particularly if any of it has made you feel uncomfortable in any way.
Even if, like, absolutely, like it's okay to feel uncomfortable, and it will make us feel uncomfortable for the longest time because it's hard to look yourself into the mirror, and it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last session that I had done with Heather was within Regeneration Rising was take a seat and make yourself uncomfortable.
I like that. That's amazing. Well, thank you, Sam, for like
Cheers, thank you.
Continuously showing up, and like, yeah, I learn a lot from you.
All right, Sam, you're a boss. Okay, Nico, I will leave the floor to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so Harlan, are you here with us? This is like, yeah, I see you there. Come here, come on stage with me.
Got it.
We got you here. I'm happy. I'm happy that you're here. Harlan has been an amazing inspiration and an incredible voice in the studio. He's one of our elders with wisdom in the studio, and it's such a pleasure to have you and your grandiose visions for a future that works for all life. His project has evolved in different shapes and ways, and I hope he talks a little bit about its origin and how it started and how it has evolved, because it's a truly fascinating vision of what life can be and how to organize ourselves in different ways and find different ways to coexist and build. And I'm pretty sure he'll also talk a lot about his portals, which he has been building both physically and metaphorically for years. You might have run into some of his incredible structures at Burning Man and maybe even hang out in one of them at points. And I hope he shows some of that incredible art as well. You can also find some of them in Regeneration in the city, and run around with your little guy and get inside and enjoy them. I'll leave the floor to you, Harlan. Thank you so much for being here.
Yep. Thank you, Nico. And boy, it was incredible, the last presentation. I kind of feel like I don't operate on such a high level. Anyway, it was a tough act to follow. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dive right in with this short intro video right off the bat, and then give you a tour of this website that was developed just right now for this Design Science Studio. So this is what I've been working on, though, for many, many years. And so the Design Science Studio really gave me the focus to buckle down and get it done. If it wasn't for this, it might still be years in the making. But this is something I've been thinking about and working on for many years. So we'll dive right in with the video, which I'll share the screen, and then I'll come back on. Well, actually, I'll leave the screen sharing on, but I'm going to give you a tour of the website and talk about that and all the things that it entails. So here we go. Share the screen. It's got the video queued up, and I'll let that be the intro. My name is Harlan Emil Gruber. I have been creating interactive portal installations since 2004 at Burning Man.
Harlan, you need to make sure that when you share, you click that share audio button on the bottom. So if you could stop your share and then share one more time, then try the video, that'd be awesome. And I muted you so that we don't hear the audio coming back from your speaker. So
You have to mute yourself.
Harlan, you're still muted. If you can just click the
So sorry for the faux pas. My first time doing a presentation like this. I will learn. Let me get this ready. I stopped the share. And then when I click share, I will first mute myself and then make sure that I click those things. So this should work much better.
Awesome.
Okay,
You're awesome, Harlan. Thank you.
Take two. My name is Harlan Emil Gruber.
Oh, sorry, Harlan.
Interactive
One more problem. It looks like you shared
at
either
Burning
the
Man.
wrong screen or didn't share the video, because we hear the video now, but we see your desktop. And you're still muted, so you're almost there.
I know it. I don't know why that happened. Oh my God, this is so strange. Maybe because I was already in. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
You're doing great. Don't
You're
stress
totally
out.
fine.
Give me a moment. Some
If we didn't,
issues. Okay, take three. I make sure to share.
it's worth it, everybody. Third time's the charm. There we go. And we got your video, and I'm sure we'll hear it in a second. Perfect.
My name is Harlan Emil Gruber. I have been creating interactive portal installations since 2004 at Burning Man and other festivals around the world, starting with the 1111 Diamond Portal. I've gone on to build many more of these portal installations that all contain the Quasar Wave Transducer, a device I invented that creates subtle low-frequency purring vibrations in the range of human brain waves and the Earth's Schumann resonance. These sounds also signify that the geometries used in these designs are vibrational energy patterns. The intention of these portal installations is to facilitate an evolution of consciousness in the participants so that they will awaken to the fact that everything in the world is sacred and choose to live accordingly. I have been doing presentations on the portal installations that go into detail explaining the three-dimensional geometries that are utilized in their design, as well as a general understanding of how three-dimensional geometry relates to the evolution of consciousness. The original inspiration for this work comes from one of my life's biggest influences, the geodesic dome inventor and comprehensive design scientist R. Buckminster Fuller. His vision is, quote, to make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone. I'm also inspired by the Italian architect Paolo Solari's book, Arcology, City in the Image of Man, that depicts his visions of ecologically integrated three-dimensional megastructure cities. I've gone on to study how humanity can inhabit the Earth in the most beautiful and sustainable way, such as Bruno Taut's crystalline cities on mountaintops conceived in 1919, Glenn Small's massive biomorphic biosphere from the late 60s, and contemporary bioarchitect Vincent Calabet's concepts such as this bridge built using 3D printing aerial drones. I have combined all of these studies into my own design for an arcology called the 12-Spiral City that consists of spiraling ramps wide enough to contain all of the buildings, streets, and gardens that are built upwards over time. I'm now developing a technique called terraquaforming, integrating land and water into human-built environments in a regenerative and life-enhancing way. Examples of this are the ancient rice terraces of Asia and man-made lakes, but terraquaforming goes a step further by integrating everything from the scientific to the spiritual nature of reality to create a world of divine harmony and sacred beauty to benefit not only humanity, but all life and the earth itself. I invite anyone inspired by this to collaborate on its development. Okay, so I'll unmute myself and give you a quick tour of that the website which that video is featured on. So let's see, how do I do? I'm gonna have to share again, but of course now you can hear me and you see me, right? That's good. And we'll go back to the home page. So I will share. I'm gonna unclick those buttons since no more sound and I'll be talking, and make sure I select the right screen. And
you got it.
Here we go.
Perfect.
So this is Portal to the New Earth website that on the home page you can easily subscribe to my Portal to the New Earth newsletter. My mission statement: Portal to the New Earth is a comprehensive overview of my lifelong interest in how the universe operates and how to utilize this information to help catalyze an evolution of consciousness so that humanity will live in sacred and divine harmony with all of life and the earth. It covers everything from the principles utilized in the designs of the interactive portal installations that have been built for Burning Man since 2004 to my lifelong interest in future environments that are in harmony with nature. PortalToTheNewEarth.com is a website to promote the upcoming sale of the book by the same name, as well as the launch of a YouTube channel that will have videos made about all the subjects covered in the book and more. It's also a way to join the Facebook community group page to connect and interact with other people and share your projects. I'm looking for people to help create the videos for the channel, someone to do the layout and design of the book, and people to help with the marketing, sales, and constructions of the Transportals installations. There's also the opportunity to create other Portal to the New Earth merchandise to generate income. So send me a message if you're interested in collaborating. So we're going to jump to the section on the book. And of course, we just saw the video, and I'll be making more videos on that page. There's some future environments. And then, of course, there's a section on all the transportals. And the name Portal to the New Earth came from this event that I hosted in Joshua Tree, California from 2014 to 2019. So let's jump over on the book page. Pretty much the same statement here that talks about what the book covers. And the book is actually written. It just needs to be finalized and designed and printed. And there's a little summary that then explains what the book is about. I don't need to read that here, but you can just see I have an image and a title of each chapter listed here, covering sound. It starts off with sound. As you saw, I created that sound device, the quasar wave transducer, but I work with sound and sound healing quite a bit, and we go into detail how sound is basically the cornerstone of creation. There's a lot of detail on three-dimensional geometry, and we go into things about ancient megalithic sites and how the ley lines and the Earth's energy body. We cover all the details of the portals that have been building for years. We jump into Buckminster Fuller and the synergetics and the design science revolution, Paolo Solari, the megastructure cities, all these other ideas such as Vincent Calabut, who's working right now with incredible visions. And then this is the project that I brought to the Design Science Studio at first, was to just dive into developing, and I've been working on this since the 80s, this 12 spiral city that's an arcology based on a sacred geometrical plan. And as of late, I'm working on this concept of terraquaforming, which would be a much simpler and down-to-earth, like eco-village designs, integrating water and earth in the most life-enhancing way. And I conclude with a nice excerpt from the book that kind of sums up the whole vision of the book. There's a website with the transportals that has a nice little slider showing the portals at Burning Man, people interacting with them, and just a basic little description and an easy way to then jump over to the website that features these, plus a little, there's a nice short video on the portals and a little grid of the various ones I've done over the years. And each of these links take you to the Transportals website. And then right now, the event website is just a little short description, very short description. And there's a nice 3-minute video that captured the 2016 event that could be watched. In the future, I may expand this to have more, archives from the photos and, to go into depth about what happened over those 5 years. And then there's just my nice little bio, short bio and contact. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you. And in the chat, I think I have in the chat the website ready to go. So I'll just put it in there right now. So at your leisure, you can go back to this and check it out. And like I say, the call is always out for people that feel guided to collaborate and work on this. I live in Joshua Tree, and I actually have a house that's an Airbnb, but I'm actually looking to turn it into the Portal to the New Earth production studio to make all these videos, work on building more portals, and just anything along this to spread and promote these ideas. So anyone who sees this, if that sounds like you can get in touch with me and see if that's a good fit. So thank you so much. I hope I didn't go over time, but I really appreciate having this opportunity to share this here. And thank you so much to everyone who's created the Design Science Studio, Nico and Roxy and Faith and Amanda. So that's it.
Thank you, Harlan.
Thank you, Harlan. You're amazing.
Cool. You're such a boss. And
then, of course, I'll give the shout out. Of course, on presents, I'm doing the next talk Friday. am I still on? I don't know. Just, people can sign up for the talk Friday afternoon at 3 and Sunday at 2. It'll be going into detail on some of the things that I talked about here. So you can find that on the Presence talks. Thank you.
Thank you, Harlan. I want to tell a funny story about, oh, maybe we're both unmuted, Nico, you might need to mute. About the first time I met you, or didn't meet you, but connected with you. My sister went to Portal to a New Earth festival and didn't come home. And after like a week, I was like, where is my sister? Somehow hunted down Harlan and found, and I was like, is she okay? And she just didn't want to leave because of all the incredible people that had congregated, and she decided to like abandon her phone. And anyways, I somehow found her, but she was safe and sound with Harlan. And then I proceeded to be the lead for a bunch of your physical installations, which brought a lot of people together to like slow down, ground, and integrate. And spaces for that are so important. And so it's just been incredible to know more of your work through this process. Your arcology was actually a word I didn't even know before the Design Science Studio. We were like going through applications, and there were like 6 people who applied who were self-prescribed arcologists, and I was blown away by some of what I saw and learned, and felt like I've been living under a rock. How did I not know that this was a thing? But yeah, just so epic, Harlan. Thank you for sharing. And is really interesting segue too, like you said, between Sam and your work. I think like getting to see again some of the current modern structures that try to be truly in harmony with nature, but really are just greenwashing, versus like structures that work, that are deeply studying and hoping to actually integrate those and transform and regenerate architecture, and what can happen in the future with our physical spaces that can be so transformative. So thank you, Harlan. And it's so epic to see how far your work has come, and you've been able to aggregate everything into a place that people can really engage with it. So celebrating that so much, and I'm really happy to introduce the next artist who is one of the revolutionaries in the Design Science Studio, and is just such a brilliant soul, Haley Walker, who grew up knowing the moss-drenched conifers and the extensive trails between the rainy mountains and the messy barnacled ocean, who lived with 3 generations of women who supported each other through everything, who knows that love and survival come before anything. She loves storytelling, humor, and listening to how others see the world. And she spends her time as an artist, saying things in surrealist oil paintings and building prototypes for the urban poor as a mechanical engineer. She merges the arts, technology, and ideas for an equitable world, and teaches and organizes community STEM and art events and workshops, making digital art and graphic design as a freelancer. She advocates for and is inspired by nature, and is relentlessly curious about how things work, and is forever learning, and has been holding space for integration as a part of this week. Thank you, Haley, for being such a beacon, and for just courageously coming forward at the end of the studio to say, like, this is actually what I feel like I want to facilitate, is integration, because what we're doing is not easy, and I think that it's so needed. So I'm excited to pass the mic to you, and celebrating your involvement in the studio has been so steadfast. So thank you.
Yay, Haley.
Yay, Haley.
Thanks, Roxy. Sorry for the introduction. That was very sweet. Yeah, I'm really honored to have a chance to participate in the Design Science Studio. It's been so enlightening, and it's just wonderful to have a community of other artists to exchange ideas with. And I really appreciate the commitment and energy and love that everyone has put into this. So it's very nice. So I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about my journey, as well as a couple things that I've been thinking about, and it's not anything formal, so I'm just chilling. So I wanted to talk about some things like the myth of species isolation and the concept of life giving life. So first off, I guess I just want to say that growing up, I was taught that independence was the most important thing that I needed to survive in this world. And that way, if something or someone proved unreliable or harmful, I'd always have myself to rely on, and I would be capable. But I'm coming to realize all the ways that not only do humans shape the planet in largely catastrophic ways, sometimes positive ways, but we're also shaped by the planet. One example I like to think of is how the apple evolved to be the perfect amount of sweetness for human taste so that we might spread her seeds and be her vehicle for reproduction. And then humans adapted our behavior into a place-based agricultural society, settling where apples grow and tending to the orchards so that we might have a food source. So in that way, the apple tree tamed us and we tamed her. This is cooperative and this is co-evolution. Nothing truly operates on its own, and we're deeply woven into the web of life. And we often don't think about ourselves that way. We come from the earth despite our extraction of her resources, and we're actually tamed by her. We don't come into this world, we come out of it. As a wave from the ocean is something that Ellen Watts has said. And so I've been exploring how all of these ideas tie into ideas of consent, reciprocity, and belonging. And one idea that I've kind of come across is about life giving life. And by that I mean other beings, other lives making us feel the most alive. And I think this is really a point where we can inspire a lot of people. And I see proof everywhere about life giving life. I think not only are humans social creatures with each other, but we're enchanted by the living and in the broadest sense of the world. I think we can see these glints of our awe with the living, even when there are tons of layers of distance between us and nature, even from our little boxes indoors, and even through like layers of concrete we've blanketed the soil with, even when we're not in direct contact with it all the time. And depending on who you are, you might have the privilege to be more in regular contact or not. I think it comes through in tiny ways, like maybe the way we treat our houseplants, like little tiny children, like little tiny miracles that we have to tend to and make sure they stay hydrated. And it feels like a miracle when after we push the seed into the earth and somehow a couple weeks later we see like a little shoot coming up. I think it's obvious in the way we're enchanted by our pets. The way a cat purr will regulate the human heartbeat, just like another human heartbeat will. In the way we can tell exactly what our dog is telling us just by the look in her eyes. It's enchanting. I think for many of us, there are so few times when we find ourselves interacting with the life-giving enchantment of other life, unfortunately. I think there was a time when I realized that somewhere along this journey that most of the things we interact with are dead things. The wooden pencil I use is from a dead thing. The cotton shirt I wear is from a dead thing. The linoleum floor under my feet is a dead thing. All of these things, objects around us are dead. And so I think like often we're starved for this feeling of life and it creates a monotony of disenchantment. But I think we're coming back to these instincts and ideas gradually and opening up to them again as a species. After kind of like the gleam of the Industrial Revolution, capitalism is starting to look like a very ugly smear as we share our collective wisdom about the harmful systems we've created, and as those who are marginalized are starting to be more hurt. And we're finding out all sorts of amazing things about other living beings now. How animals have their own cultural traditions. They have different traditions passed down from different groups of the same species. So we know it's beyond evolution and survival. A lot of animals have a sense of aesthetic beauty, just as people do, making their own ornamentation and art even when it's calorically and mentally costly, simply because it's beautiful. And we're finding all sorts of things about plants and fungi, that fungi connect the root systems between trees and help them speak to each other. That plants have a more sophisticated conception of gender and non-hierarchical organization often than us. So I think we're remembering our home again as electric with life, and that's really exciting. I also want to talk about how we've conceptualized ourselves as the main character for a very long time. The myth of the protagonist is that he is deeply connected. The reality is that he's isolated because he has put himself on a plane of existence all by himself. We as humans experience a strong sense of what is called species loneliness, and it leaves a huge festering hole in our souls, I think. And I think the myth that we've told ourselves that we're superior beings gives us permission to extract resources without consent. But we didn't realize that it would also separate us from this enchanted world, and that by doing this, we feel deeply that we don't belong to our own home. Humans aren't the main character. We'll only feel belonging to this earth if we no longer accept our false identity as a virus to the planet and as destroyers. If we get quiet and look around, we can be re-enchanted with the realities around us. If we begin to amplify, we will begin to amplify joy and play, which I think are also extremely important for re-enchantment. If we respect what we find, we can learn how to ask for permission, asking ourselves what we can offer before scheming about what we can take. And we can start to learn from the wisdom of other creatures. If we continue to collectively write a new story for our relationship with life, we can learn how to sustain a reciprocity with all other beings, and we can belong. I'm discovering now all the ways that the myth of independence, of isolation, can be rewritten into the story of interdependence and belonging. So I've been thinking about, I guess, how to represent this as an artistic experience and spread this idea. I'd like to use ontological design to design an interactive experience and space to convey these ideas via kinetic, dynamic, ecological dreamscapes that feel as if the participant is entering an entire world that has existed tangent to them their whole life. And I'd like to convey the grief and enchantment of this experience, while also leaving space for the participant to reconcile their role in this world and how they might create belonging and find home with this unfamiliar place through small interactions that call them forward in the space and that allow for reciprocal exchange. I like to use paint, projection, electronics, generative programming, and hands-on materials as my mediums. So if anybody is fluent in those things and wants to contribute or has ideas, I'd love to hear them. I'm also interested in creating a visual natural history of the landscape to illustrate the planet as a dynamic living thing. I'd like to partner with others and use maybe Landsat images or landscape ecology data to show how the Earth regulates and shapes itself beyond what are told histories about how we have shaped it, to kind of balance that scale of how, like the bias of who shapes what and reciprocity. And I want to show that the Earth has agency of its own in its shaping, and as a living being, it has agency. How rivers carve out new paths over time, how eruptions, landscapes, or landslides, and everything mold the land. Kind of like a time-lapse aerial geographic history. So yeah, I guess those are a little bit of my ideas. I think we can only work towards what we can imagine, and so I think it's so important that we imagine and tell the story of the future, as everyone here is doing. And I am really thankful that I've been able to co-create a space with everyone for us to do that. yeah, if anyone resonated with anything, feel free to contact me. I love conversations that make me uncomfortable, that is welcoming and comfortable, all things. I'll put my email in the chat. And actually, before I forget, I am also doing an integration space event tomorrow at 8 a.m. PST. If anyone would like to join to share thoughts and affirm each other's visions and purposes. So yeah, that's all from me. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Haley. Epic. So good to hear your voice and your visions. Do you want me to share the final slides that you made?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah? Cool. So as a final participatory act together, we are gonna do just a little bit of amplifying all of your voices in the space. Is it the Wednesdays one? Yeah, one that says Wednesday integration. Oh, you're muted. Yes. No.
Oh, sorry, I had myself muted. It is. Thanks.
All right. So I'm just going to. And do you want this to be open-ended, or do you want it to be word cloud?
I think this question might lend itself more to open-ended, but do you think we have time?
Yeah, no, that's fine. It'll only take a moment.
Okay.
Let me make sure that I'm sharing sound. Cool. Okay, so just inviting you all to come in and answer and reflect this question together. So I'll put the link in the chat as well, but you just type in ahaslides.com/planetary1 like this, although that didn't post as a link, so I'll have to do it again. And yeah, just love to get you all in here and hear some of your reflections. In what ways do you witness and nurture interdependence? And I will put on a sound. Oops, I broke the internet. Oh no. No. There we go. Cool. In what ways do you nurture and witness interdependence? Epic. Thank you for setting that up, Haley. I think it's so important to amplify everyone's voices and see how this is all landing. I think that this has been a really just like varied day. The like beginning of it was so powerful, and this also so powerful in different ways. I think one of the things Amanda was talking about with this theme is that, like, you know, through like the process of coming together does help make us more resilient. And one of the things that I've heard the most about the studio being born in the wake of the pandemic, when everyone was so isolated and separated, was that it became like a place where we could try to build a lighthouse in a storm together, especially with, you know, a band of polymaths and misfits who are marginalized, the creatives, and we're trying to kick our way in some ways out of this lame culture of like starving artists and all of this nonsense, and to like truly being acknowledged for the key pillars and contributors to this transition that we are. And so let's move together. So many more of these answers are coming through, and it's really incredible to hear all your voices. I want to encourage everyone to go play on the vision train and continue to invite your communities, you know, the voices that you've heard here tonight and today, this morning, wherever you are in the world, whether you're in this Zoom room or out on the many different live streams that are going out right now, are really dedicated to, you know, doing what we need to do to decolonize our minds and really move forward into a world that works for all, and have been doing this work and have been creating, you know, different interdependent approaches and solutions. I say that with the letter S, solutions, in, you know, different parts of this interconnected weave, and in order to really collaborate forward, we need to continue to bring the people together. And so invite your people, invite your friends, invite your family. And we have another 4 epic days. So we look forward to seeing you. And thank you. We'll see y'all on the flip side. Hope to see you in the dance party. It's important to give yourself a little time to integrate in many ways. So thank you, Haley, for holding that space as well tomorrow. And see you later. Have a good next hours of your life. Hope to see you in the train.